Tonight we are going in depth on the debate over using public tax dollars to fund private schools. State lawmakers at the Capitol had what is likely to be the first of many debates deciding on how much money should go to private schools and how much should be set aside for families of those who are in public school. There was some bipartisan opposition today, but this is likely an issue that will be debated all the way into May because it will impact the state's budget. $50 million more, and if it's needed, $50 million more on top of that.
The parental choice tax credit wasn't sold because it was going to increase capacity. It was sold because people wanted something different.
The Oklahoma House Education Appropriations Committee voted 7-4 with bipartisan opposition to add $50 million more to the funding of the parental school choice tax credit.
So it's about expanding the opportunity and giving every single parent, no matter their income, no matter their zip code, the right to choose the school that best suits them.
Supporters of adding more money into the fund say there are many Oklahoma families who qualify for the credit but miss out because it is currently capped at $250 million. They say demand for more money is clear.
We've seen a 46% increase in the amount of approved applications in just a couple years. This is a program that has proven to be been received very well from the public. They want it. The demand is there.
Under House Bill 3705, starting next year, $300 million would be available to fund school choice tax credits. Then if the next school year, more than 90% of the fund is used, the state would add on another $50 million for school choice tax credits to put more on the table. The amount would increase $50 million each year the fund has 90% or more of families wanting the credit.
I mean, it feels like we're just pulling more and more money from our public education from schools that are supposed to be the schools that are privately funded anyway.
Opponents of the increase say public dollars should be used solely for public schools, and they called private schools a luxury for the rich and the tax credit a tax perk for families who don't financially struggle.
And the conversation that we should be having around school choice is that I should not have to choose my school. My local community school should be so well funded, so well staffed, so well resourced that no matter where I live and where I go, that is the best school because all of the schools would be top-notch.
Tulsa Democratic State Representative John Waldron says in some cases, some private schools raise tuition on their families so they could pocket more money from the state for themselves without increasing the number of seats they offer new students, using state tax dollars to attend their institutions.
That does not mean that they're going to admit more students, which was what we were originally sold on vouchers for. So if you're in a rural district that doesn't have private schools, I would say that this bill might be good for me, but is it good for thee?
House Education Appropriations Chairman Republican Chad Caldwell says not only will public schools likely get an increase in funding this year, but the new money going into the state's voucher program would come from a separate pot of money that has nothing to do with public schools.
This pulls no money from our public schools because it's a complete separate fund.
The committee voted 7-4 with 2 Republicans voting no to keep the bill alive and moving through the House. The Oklahoma Parental Choice Tax Credit is actually a very young program in this state, and only within the last year did it actually reach its peak funding. Take a look at this. Governor Stitt signed this into law back in May 2023, and it took effect for tax year 2024 or the 2023-2024 school year. Tax year 2024 saw $150 million, and the fund was completely used up. Tax year 2025 saw $200 million, and the data isn't completely public yet on the usage, but there were signs on the Tax Commission's website that all of the funds had been claimed. This school year and tax year 2026, the fund reaches its maximum, $250 million. And that is where it will stay unless there is new legislation of some kind put in place, like what was discussed today. Now take a look at this. If House Bill 3705 becomes law next year, the total amount would then grow to $300 million. And then, depending on demand, if a large number is seen after that increase, the amount could grow to more than $350 million, and the pattern repeats as long as the demand is there. This is not an automatic increase. The demand must exist, is what state lawmakers are saying. Since the creation of the Parental Choice Tax Credit, Governor Kevin Stitt has always pushed for removing that cap and just giving funding to everyone who qualifies. The governor, once again this year, is pushing for the removal of the $250 million cap. He agreed to the cap originally in 2023 just to get something across the finish line. The legislature was actually the one who put the cap in place, saying a free-for-all for everyone wanting a voucher would overwhelm the state's budget. When asked every year, Stitt has said it is his policy that the money follows the student, not just automatically going to districts and pots. When it comes to the Republican supermajority in both chambers, not everyone is on the same page as to how much money should go towards the state school choice tax credit program. Some don't want more money. Some want more money, but not an unlimited amount, and some agree with the governor. I had Senate Pro Tem Lonnie Paxton on the program just last month, and he says removing the cap is fiscally dangerous for the state, but there is talk about putting more new money out there.
So we have a cap of $250 million on that right now. So, and that's once it hits that cap, that's all we're doing. So we're very open as the need is showing that we need to raise the cap. I'm all for raising the cap, but eliminating it altogether means we can't budget for other things, like things we just talked about, or even roads or law enforcement, anything else. If there's an uncapped expense out there that we don't know what it's going to be, that creates a problem. So I've never been a fan of removing that cap. If you go back to when I first became a legislator in 2016, we had the effects of an uncapped zero emissions tax credit, which is basically the wind turbines. That was an uncapped tax credit sitting out there. And before the legislature could come in and act, it ran out of control. We were paying hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 10 years, in excess of $1 billion. A lot of it went to foreign companies, went to companies outside the state of Oklahoma, because there was not a cap on that program. One of the first things the legislature did when I became a state senator, the 2017 session, is we eliminated that zero emissions tax credit. And they're still building the things, but they don't need a tax credit to do so. But that's what an uncapped program can do, is just lead to uncontrollable credits that we end up paying out on. So we have to be very careful with taking the cap off. Certainly raise it up as time, as the need warrants that we need to raise it up, but we will do it in a controlled manner.
When it comes to bills involving money like the one we're discussing tonight, they're going to move somewhat differently through the Capitol. Because it influences the state budget, we could see it pass out of committee and another committee, and then it could very well be on hold until the final state budget is crafted and passed all the way in May. We will have to wait a bit to see if this one gets across the finish line.